Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Happy Recap Podcast. It is the 10th of November, 2021, and we're doing a special edition sort of. We held off over the weekend, knowing full well that we would be doing a special edition on this Tuesday afternoon that we're recording it. And the reason we, of course, held it is because of the press conference today featuring Steve Cohen, new owner of the New York Mets, and Sandy Alderson, the new team president. And EJ, I can tell you right now, I've seen the Mets win a World Series. I've seen a Met pitcher throw a no-hitter. I have seen a number of great moments in this team's franchise history. I never thought I would say that about a press conference, but today was one of the great moments in Met history.
Absolutely, it was. This was a watershed moment for us as Steve Cohen takes over and kind of lays out his future, his rationale behind wanting to buy the team and where he expects this organization to go, followed by Sandy Alderson explaining what he expects of this organization, not just to be a well-run baseball team, but an iconic franchise.
Yeah, I think the only complaint some Met fans will have about today's press conference is that it was a little short on specifics, which I fully expected and I would not want. I don't want. You don't want the new dealer in town to show you all his cards. There's just simply because the wrong people are going to see them and we're going to get taken advantage of. But at the end of the day, you have a guy who, when asked, what team out there is maybe a template for what you want to do with the Mets over the next couple of years? And he hems and haws, and I think you could hear the collective hearts stop of Met fans around the tri-state area. Was he going to? Is he say the Astros? Is he say the Rays? Did he say the Yankees? And then he said, "I kind of like what the Dodgers are doing." And one of the rare times any Met fan will approve of anything Dodger. I mean, my heart screamed, yes! That is exactly what we need. That is exactly what we want. I mean, there already was an East Coast Dodgers, but it's coming back, baby. And it's coming back to Queens.
Yeah, that was a great moment. So the guy decides to pick, I like the teams that win World Series. You know what? We do too. And that definitely seems to be what he wants for this organization. I mean, he put a timetable on it. He said he expects us to win a World Series within 3 to 5 years, if not sooner. That's the kind of optimism and positivity you could want out of your owner. And I really think that's the word of the day right now is optimism. I have been a Mets fan. You have been a Mets fan for decades. And I go into this season feeling as optimistic about the whole franchise, not just the team, but about this franchise as I've ever felt in the history of my fandom.
It was one of the things he said that actually, I mean, a lot of things struck me as this guy gets me. And, a couple $1 billion separate us, I suppose, bank account wise, but this guy really, as a Mets fan, gets me when he talks about how he wants it to be a team that every year is in the conversation, as opposed to 1 year you win and then 3 years you're terrible. And I don't know about you, but I'll be honest. I mean, with every situation the Mets have had over the years, I kind of resigned myself to that we were going to have a good year, maybe 2 in a row, maybe if we're lucky. And then it was going to be downhill for a couple of years, and then maybe we'd get back up again a bit. And I was settling. I'm not going to deny that. But he gets it. He saw it too. He was doing it too. And he doesn't want it anymore. And he's ready to change it.
Not to make a comparison to a Yankee here, but I consider he's going to be like a stopper the way Andy Pettitte was for the Yankees. If we ever do go on one of those bad seasons, I feel like Steve comes in the next year to put an end to it right away and not let the sustained season after season after season of bad to happen. I can't see him allowing this team to be bad for more than 1 year in a row.
No, I think even if you had somebody that's, I was talking to a good friend of ours who used to write for Mets blog back in the day and his own blog, Vinny C, the other day, and we were talking about Cano, and I'm certainly high on Cano's 2020. and his last month or so of 2019 as well, even as he started to show what he could do healthy. And his ilk was he wants him off the team. He doesn't care. I said, I think that if you have a situation where at the end of next season, Cano is batting 202 with 25 RBIs, it doesn't matter how much he has to eat, albeit it's only a year, but Cohen would eat it. I absolutely believe he would eat that contract because it would be stopping what the problem is. And that would be him, specifically Cano being the problem. And, he isn't. I'm not saying he is, but in that particular scenario, I mean, it's the most controversial contract on the team at this point. It's really the main reason I'm pointing it out. But you look at it, and it's definitely a different scenario because, I mean, how shocked were we when the Mets actually ate the contract to Jason Bay?
Right, and you got to love hearing from Sandy Alderson when he's talking about today. They were saying, what particular player moves might you be looking into? And both Cohen and Sandy both said, well, we know that due to COVID-19, a lot of teams are going to be under some financial hardships, and they're going to probably be letting go of some players due to the finances, and we'll be in position to maybe pick up some of those players. And he specifically referenced that if this deal had been finalized last week, that Brad Hand, 1 year for $10 million, might have been the type of overpay that the Mets were willing to do. And when Sandy says we're about the acquisitions now, I mean, is there ever been sweeter music to a Mets fan's ears than that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's kind of the thing. I mean, you have a team that is ready to spend where it needs to spend, ready to develop where they need to develop. You can tell that they're not going to, unless it's necessary to achieve a premium piece, they're not going to send out premium prospects, and they're going to build a perennial winner. Now, admittedly, they all say, nobody's said to say, I'm looking to build an occasional winner. Nobody's actually going to say that. I mean, you get laughed off the podium, even on a Zoom conference call. But, when you look at, what he said all the right things. He said them with a passion and intensity and an intent. There's no BS there. That was a fan who can't win to wait to help his favorite team win. And I dig that. I mean, I just, I can't tell you how many times in the past 2 to 3 weeks, as a Mets fan, I have heard the name Steve Cohen, stopped in my tracks and go, is this really happening? Is this happening? I mean, I feel like I'm waiting, getting ready for my wedding day all over again. Did she really say yes? I can't believe it. Don't ever tell my wife I made this comparison, by the way, EJ. Never tell her. But it is amazing, though, how exciting a moment this is. The only devil's advocate in me said the most exciting press conference I could think of before this, Mickey Callaway.
Right.
That was a motivating press conference. He said the right things all the time, too. He just couldn't do any of them.
I carved out a couple of the quotes and I printed them out. I know, show prep, it's crazy. That I wanted to run by you here. And this is just the reason why everyone is so giddy. First and foremost, when Cohen is talking about the Mets as a business, he says, I'm essentially doing it for the fans. I can make millions of people happy. And what an incredible opportunity that is. I'm not trying to make money here. I have my business at .72, and I make money there. Here, it is about building and winning. I mean, come on. After the years that we have suffered under the Wilpons this year, that is as good as it gets.
I mean, that's the thing, too, especially as, you look at the different opportunities that may exist for the owner of the Mets, whoever they would be, in this situation over the next decade or two outside of the team, but within the community. And it's clear that's a community he wants to invest in. But they've talked about the refurbishment of that community, the rejuvenation of that community. And, there are plenty of opportunities for the owner of the Mets, whoever, like I said, whoever they may have been. In this case, it happens to be Steve Cohen. Thank you very much. To make money without having to worry about what the team is doing. I mean, .72 is great, and he obviously is very successful with it. But that's the beautiful thing about the Mets is you can have a very successful investment and still go, you know what goes on the field, I don't care. We want to win.
Right. And what I loved was him comparing .72 to what he wants to do with the Mets. He says, we invest in good young talent. We watch them as they grow. And there was one point I had to laugh where he stopped himself short where he says, I don't suffer. And I'm pretty sure he was going to say, I don't suffer fools, as is the saying. But he stopped himself and said, I don't suffer mediocre answers. And that's exactly how he plans on building up the Mets. And I love when he said, I'm not in this to be mediocre. I want something great. And that is all that we want. And then to top off that quote by saying, this is a major market team. Oh,
with a payroll commensurate thereof, basically.
Absolutely. That is what we've been dying to have an owner treat our team as. And I loved when he said, I'm not competing with the Yankees here. I think he stopped himself short because he wants to be better than the Yankees. He wants us to be the icon of New York, the icon of Major League Baseball. He wants us to be what every other franchise strives to be.
Yeah, and that's the key here. I mean, I think that's, the reality of it, obviously, first stop NL East always has to be. I mean, you could talk about, and I forget off the top of my head, I think it was Mark Carrig who brought up the Yankees with him. And the reality of it is you're going to play the Yankees a couple times next year, certainly most notably on 9/11. But the reality is they're in the other league. They're in their own division. Your effect on each other is minimal until possibly you both get to the World Series. But at the end of the day, that doesn't mean you can't strive for, it doesn't mean you don't strive for it. It just means that you don't have to hit it immediately, and you don't have to make that your target, because at the end of the day, no matter whether you can beat the Yankees in the World Series or not, if you don't make it to the first round, you're not going to do it.
Right. And, I know you put the 3 to 5 year window to win a World Series, but I got to get a feeling that this guy, if we're not in the playoffs in 2021, that Stevie's not going to be happy. And I love thinking that way about my owner. I used to feel like the Wilpons' motivation to get to the postseason was, we'll sell more tickets in postseason games and we can jack up prices. Whereas Steve's like, no, I'm a fan. I want my team in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, the way I interpreted it, and again, I it's all about interpretation at this point, because we're still kind of learning more and more about Steve Cohen, especially, this is one of the first times, certainly the first time I've ever seen him speak. Other than, kind of seeing his quote unquote typing voice on Twitter over the past week and a half or so. But the thing for me, and there went the train of thought, just choo-choo right out of the station.
But the thing I got is the things that we hated about the Wilpons.
Yes,
they were financially strapped, and Jeff was a meddler. And for Steve Cohen to get up there and say, we are in the acquisition business, for Sandy Alderson to say, we are going to acquire players and we will overpay if need be for the right guys, that's the biggest problem that we have with the Wilpons. And now we're going to be able to do that. And then the micromanager, Cohen used the exact words, I am not a micromanager. And he said, ultimately, the baseball people are the experts. He said, I'm learning. I love when Sandy talked about when the market is slow around lunchtime, how Steve picks up the phone and picks Sandy's brains about baseball-related things. He is a fan, but he is coming in openly acknowledging he's not an expert. That is what Sandy is there for. That is what whoever the baseball president of baseball operations is going to be, that is what the GM is going to be. And Cohen openly admits it. And then Sandy sits there and says, look, I'm not making all the baseball ideas. I got a seat at the table. And at that table is going to be me, the president of baseball operations, and GM. And then we'll run things by Steve. And that is what you love to hear after years of the Jeff Wilpon meddling. This guy's like, look, I got a business to run. I got .72 to run. That's where I make my money. That's what allows me to be the owner of this franchise. So I can't be sitting here making these decisions on a day-to-day basis and scrutinizing. I mean, it's hallelujah music to our ears.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about the Jeff Wilpon thing here in a second because of the letter put out by after his dismissal by Brody Van Wagenen last week. But the thought I was going to put out before it went bye-bye was that when he said the 3 to 5 years timeline, I felt like I heard a hitch in his voice where he almost said two.
Right.
And kind of along the lines of maybe I shouldn't say that. Maybe I shouldn't be that hasty, or at least promise that close, knowing that there are going to be some fans that hold him to that rather strictly. Dude, you said 2 years. It's been 2.5, and nothing's happened yet.
Right.
So I mean, it's the there is a honeymoon period. There's certainly, we'll see how this offseason goes. But the first time, as soon as some segment of the fan base thinks should have signed as a Met, signed somewhere else, that's when, Uncle Steve, as he's called, is, going to get some nasty tweets. And the only thing I can say there while I'm thinking about it is, if you're tempted, please don't. It is an amazing opportunity that you have, that your new owner, who wants to bring you championships, also wants to hear from you. Don't be Lenny from Of Mice and Men. Do not pet the rabbit. In other words, if you don't agree with him, you could say that, but don't attack him, because we're all have this access, and it's a good thing. And maybe other teams will get it. Maybe other people within the organization will do it. At the end of the day, don't blow it, because once it's gone, it does not come back at all. And you've alienated the guy we all just want to love. So just love the guy and enjoy it and have a fun winter, because this is going to be one freaking awesome hot stove season regardless. And like I said, this is a press conference, an ownership transition that, as somebody who has been a fan of this team over 40 years, I can say it is a top 20 moment. Easy, if not a top 10 moment for the franchise. And that is really important. So enjoy today. Enjoy what it was about. But try not to bug poor Mr. Cohen on the Twitter more than you have to.
Yeah,
PSA mode over.
I think we both agree he's not going to be as present as he's been the last couple of days. Obviously, He's just kind of getting to know his Mets fans. So hopefully he doesn't go as radio silent as Sandy would at times, but I don't think he'll be out there as much on the Twitterverse. But you got to love the fact that in today's press conference, he starts talking about some of the fan suggestions. And he's like, yeah, Old Timers Day. That sounds like a great idea. Yeah, let's get that Tom Seaver statue up by opening day. If we can get fans in the building, that would be great. So he's definitely going to listen, and he's definitely going to implement.
I mean, I presume too, and I haven't asked anybody in the know, but I presume that, certainly, with the news yesterday of a potential vaccine, being very hopeful that would allow some people to get into the stadium at some point next year, that I would presume that we still are planning a Jerry Koosman number retirement ceremony at some point next year as well. That should have taken place this year. And I think that the one thing that I definitely got beyond the Old Timers Day thing was that, which I'm a big fan of, love the idea. The one thing that I think that he really does seem to be behind is the alumni situation, and the whole situation with, honoring Mets history. And that's something that I know that when we talked with Greg a couple weeks ago, and we'll talk, finish our conversation this weekend with him, we all talked about. I mean, this team's history, as spotty as it can be at times, is important to us. And the fact that somebody else wants to honor it, yes, please.
Yeah, he talked about going to the Polo Grounds in '63. he talked about being 13 years old when they won in '69. I mean, 13 was like the height of many people's passionate rooting interest in their favorite baseball team, and he got to see this team win a World Series at that age. So I definitely think that rooting interest and that sense of history that he has will be honored heavily by this owner, and I think he will respect the alumni, and I believe he wants to really build the sense of a community amongst the former Mets players.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing too, I mean, as far as holdovers go, I think if when all is said and done, Jay Horwitz remains in his role as the alumni director, you still got a great guy in there who the alumni all love him, and vice versa. And so it's really easy to keep that kind of stuff organized. I mean, I don't hear a lot of times, you don't hear a lot of stories of people going, I went and saw the Mets play at the Polo Grounds. I mean, it was a tough place to get to. It was in an awkward place. It wasn't a particularly nice neighborhood. It was not a particularly nice stadium at the point the Mets played in. It woefully inadequate for baseball in 1962 and 1963. And most fans, if they did go up there, they didn't go back a second time just because the place was an absolute dump. And so, I mean, they were, I think, in their first 2 seasons, averaging 7,000 fans a game. The only other person I've ever known that went up to a game there was my dad, and he's like, I went there once and couldn't wait for Shea Stadium.
Yeah, it's definitely a sense of you had to have been diehard to go to the Polo Grounds back in those days.
That was right. Diehard because it was. I don't remember if there, but I've recall reading somewhere that there weren't even any like direct subway.
Right.
You had a bus. I mean, it would subway to the bus. There was no convenient way to get there, and no parking by the stadium.
For the modern day fans, it's like trying to get to Nassau Coliseum.
If not worse. I've done it. I've done Nassau Coliseum. It's ice capades, baby.
Nice. Well, looking from the past to the future, a couple things that were brought up today that I thought were interesting to take note of was, one, it does sound like that Luis Rojas will be back as manager. They left the door slightly ajar for the president of baseball operations. If that guy has his guy he's really adamant about, that they left the door open for him. But if both Steve and Sandy kind of alluded to it, I think it's pretty much a done deal. And then the other thing that I loved was post press conference, I guess, there was a press conference it was just a one-on-one between Gelbs and Sandy. And one of the questions that Gelbs asked Sandy was, we look at Mike Trout and how he's a generational player, and the Angels have never been able to build around him. And are you worried that you have a generational player in Jacob deGrom and wasting his prime, essentially, if you don't build around him right now? And Sandy's answer was, well, yes and no. Obviously, we don't want to waste Jake deGrom's prime, but we have other guys like, only name he brought up, Michael Conforto, who is a typical Mets player. That is what Sandy called him. He is the prototype of a Mets player that we want. So we want to make sure that we don't waste Conforto either. And I think all Mets fans who have been just screaming, Steve, okay, you have the team, extend Conforto. Sandy really made it seem like that's going to be a high priority.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you need to get the situation. I mean, Boris is going to be preoccupied with his free agents anyway, for at least the first couple months. But I think that's something that, especially if he is as willing to stick around as he claims, and there's no reason to believe that Michael Conforto would lie about that. I think you're looking at a situation where maybe by Valentine's Day, right before pitchers and catchers, you could see him locked down for the next 6-7 years. I think that's very possible. And
I agree with that.
I hope it happens, because otherwise you have to start thinking about the unthinkable. And I don't think that's where either. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, does Cohen and Sandy want to come in, and the move they're known best for in their first year is trading away Conforto?
Yeah, definitely not. And Sandy just seems to really love him. So yes. I think we're safe in that regard.
Didn't he draft him?
Yep, exactly. Yeah. So, and the other piece of good news that came out was yesterday, there's now talk that we could look at the DH happening in 2021 in the
Saw
National
that.
League. Something you and I have been beleaguered about, the fact that there wouldn't be. It sounds like some of the Mets quote-unquote problems, having too many decent bats, could be solved. And it's basically a matter of, they're like, yeah, we have to renegotiate. Who's saying no? The Players Association? They're not saying no. And the teams aren't saying no. So it sounds like that could happen for us next
It's
season.
still one of those funny things that towards the end of the season, Manfred was asked about the National League DH, some of the rule changes that were made for this year, and he referred to the NLDH as, amongst fans and players, the least popular of all the rule changes for 2020. I read too much. I don't believe that for a second. I'm not going to accuse flat out the commissioner of being a liar, but I'm going to accuse him of having some bad info at the very least, because it has worked out. It has done what it's supposed to do. We're probably not playing a full season next year. I think that's one thing that we need to come, we talk about the hope of, vaccine and treatments and all those different things. But at the end of the day, I expect, and this is just me, I expect a full season of about 140 games. I think it will be very similar rule-wise to what we saw last year. However, I think certain things may be done away with because it's just not that as bubbly. And I'm hoping that you will see, with 140 games, a little bit more traveling, especially in the second half of the season. But, at the same time, Mr. Turner's stunt did not help the sport at all. And then, of course, he didn't get into an ounce of trouble for it, which was opportunity missed.
He's really, really sorry, though, so that's okay. But, I mean, Rob Manfred dropped the ball on that one. But if Rob Manfred wants to know what the fans' take is on the NLDH, all you need to do is go check out Howie Rose's Twitter timeline from yesterday, where Howie, of all people who we would all consider to be as traditional gets, laid it all out there defending the National League designated hitter.
He did.
And Howie is, to me, he is the voice of reason when it comes to Major League Baseball. So if Howie's on board, I think most fans would be on board as well.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing he's against that players seem to be for those black jerseys, which I have a proposal actually for Mr. Alonso on this, and that the proposal is this: we will accept black shirt Fridays at home if you give up the players' weekend jerseys.
Yeah.
That's my deal. I'm willing to put up with that. It is because those last ones, I mean, they've never been good, but the last ones were, you couldn't even see them. I mean,
right.
They were the letter name and numbers were the same color as the uniform itself. But yeah, that's the deal I'm willing to make. Pete, if you're out there, LFGM, and that's my offer.
Right. And I think ultimately Mr. Cohen will be making all those types of decisions, because I think while he's not going to meddle with the baseball thing, let's face it, he's a fan. If he gets to make some tweaks to the ballpark, maybe even, hey, I don't need Citibank to sponsor my ballpark. I'm changing it back to Shea when this deal is over. I mean, he can do all types of things like that. So it'll be fun to see what tweaks Steve makes.
If I recall, because a few people have brought, of course, the stadium name up. Let's see, 2020, 10th, so 11th. I think, are we going to our 13th or 14th season at the stadium? So about 7 more years left of the city naming, because it was a 20-year deal, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think it was 20.
So that being said, I mean, again, the beautiful thing about people who are wealthy is they can pay to make things go away.
Right. Exactly.
So, I mean,
exactly.
It's certainly possible, but I wouldn't count on it because, again, the other thing about wealthy people is they didn't get there by turning away money either.
Right.
So
Right.
at the end
That
of the
was like
day,
one of the
he may not be
reporters.
running it as a business, but that doesn't mean he's going to go completely against all business sense to run the thing.
One of the reporters today asked him if this was a hobby for him. I'm like, come on. The guy just spent 2.4 billion. I don't care how rich you are. 2.4 billion is not something you drop on a hobby.
I mean, I guess if you got it. Oh my. Yeah.
Yeah,
Crazy
that's
stuff.
a
But
1/7 of his wealth. I'm not giving up 1/7 of my wealth for any hobby, no matter how good it is.
I can't think of. I mean, a lot of the very wealthy give up that much for their beloved yachts and whatnot. But
Right.
at the end of the day, it does seem like a little bit of excess. Well, EJ, like I said, I feel a dose of optimism. I feel a dose of energy. I feel a little annoyed that we're not taking the field tomorrow, in the sense that I kind of want to fast forward and see what the results were. But this is a day that we never thought we'd see. I mean, I think we all pretty much had resigned ourselves to when Fred Wilpon passed, there'd be a press conference with Jeff, and he'd talk about his vision for the future of the budget-minded Mets, and that you don't have to spend money to survive in New York, and off we'd go for another couple decades. That didn't happen.
Is not happening. And I'll close with Steve Cohen's own words. When asked what the Mets way is, I want professionalism. I want integrity. I'm not going to put up with maybe the type of stuff that's happened at other places. I want to hire the best and the brightest. I want to create a great farm system, develop our players, and win championships. Done.
I mean, that you couldn't put it any more exact. And if you weren't excited for some bizarre reason, if you were not excited about Steve Cohen before today, as a Mets fan, if you're not now, I would lay off the hashish, I guess. I don't know. Nothing's going to excite you. It's definitely an exciting thing, and we'll talk a little bit about the Wilpon era just passed with our good friend Greg Prince. We'll do that this next podcast coming up. Conclude our conversation with him that we started last week, and also want to take some time out and talk to you about an organization that was mentioned a couple times today, the Cohen Foundation, which will be operating in tandem with the Mets Foundation. It's run by Steve Cohen's wife, Alex, and we're going to hear a little bit about that because they are a growing foundation, and they're definitely looking for people to help out and be a part and just support them. And so we're going to give a little bit of encouragement their way for you to do that. If in the meantime, Cohen Hope, at Cohen Hope on Twitter is their handle, and help them out by following them on social media to start with. And we'll talk a little bit about more on the organization on Sunday. And also may check in here in the next week or two with our good friend Justin Toscano. Just want to get his vibe off this press conference. He's one of the guys we know that was in there. And I love the fact that, and I'm totally going to tease him about this, Sandy Alderson got an age dig on him. Justin asked how long of a commitment he was making here, because of your age. Well, thanks for bringing up my age. And being, I believe, the youngest on the beat, I just found that pretty stinking funny right there. So
yeah, that was a great moment. Great moment.
I enjoyed that, and I will definitely, we'll definitely have to give him a little bit of crap for that. So that's just par for the course. Sorry in advance, Justin. Any final thoughts from you, my friend?
Nope. It's a very, very, very good day, my friend.
Yeah, I think the meme that is always the variant. I'll use the Kramer variant. Is my mind is blown, completely blown, because everything I knew is wrong, and suddenly in this weird, twisted, screwed up 2020, on one of my favorite roads, that's Mets Road, or in this case, Tom Seaver Way, something just went light. The light turned on. It is not dark. The light is on, and it is bright, my friend. It is freaking bright. And you know what? In a year where finding things to be optimistic about has been really tough, I take that extra seriously. And so I'm going to love this, man. I'm just going to love on it and enjoy every second of the hot stove season, because this is the off season we deserve. This is the off season we've been waiting for our whole lives. And this is the beginning of something awesome. Until next week, let's go Mets and let's go Steve.